So, so yeah, Kim, like I said earlier, thank you so much for your time. Your name is Kim Lee Wentzel-Ricketts. I didn't want to mess that up. Did I mess it up?
No, it's Wentzel. It's a V instead of a W, but you got it spot on otherwise.
Oh, okay. Okay, is that German? Is it German?
It is indeed. It is indeed German descent.
Okay, I know, cool, man. German descent, but you were born and bred in Cape Town. How was it like, growing up in Cape Town?
Absolutely love it. I wouldn't change it for anything. I actually lived in Joburg for 3 years just to progress my career a bit. Came back and realized home is where the heart is. So absolutely love living here. Also just moved around in Cape Town quite a bit. So grew up on the Cape Flats, did some work in the community. So from the south, from the southern suburbs, and now find myself in the deep south, all the way in Simonstown. 500 meters walking distance from the beach. So loving it, absolutely loving it.
Sounds like a dream. Sounds like a dream. A lot of people would say, that I've met actually, in my experience from Cape Town, prefer Joburg, but you went back and you're like, wow, this is paradise.
No, I mean, since I moved back, we decided to move towards the like I said, 500 meters to the beach. Now I have the mountain view from where I'm sitting right now. I literally look at the mountain. And when I stand up, I can see the ocean. So I'm like, what better view than, I love Joburg, don't get me wrong. I actually enjoyed my time there. I spent 3 years there. And when I got the opportunity to come home and work back home, I realized, you know what? Like I said, home is where the heart is. So I wouldn't trade it for anything. Had my Joburg stint, and I'm sorry for all my Joburg colleagues. I always tease them. I'm always like, no, there's no place like Cape Town. And when people talk to me about South Africa and go Joburg, I'm like, no, guys, you need to come to Cape Town. Then let's have the chat again about whether you'll stay where you are, come to Cape Town. So I'm the one usually convincing people to come.
Okay, no, I mean, look, I love Cape Town too. I love Cape Town too. I think it's very beautiful. Yeah, and what you do also is very interesting. You're an industrial psychologist. Now, I've never met an industrial psychologist before, so what's a day in a life like for you? Like, what do you do exactly?
So it's evolved quite significantly, probably even since Clayton and you spoke. But I look at people and human behavior in the workplace, ensuring that the environment that people work in is one that they are motivated by, that they can be productive in, and that they have the right tools to do their job, essentially. So it's functioning of individuals. I'm there. Yes, I do have counseling sessions where I have the couch moments or on the couch moments. Now it's on the camera moments that I end up having. But I also get to work on, like I said, holistic well-being of people and our customers. So I get to work in the customer space now. Actually, that's why I said it's evolved in terms of my role. But predominantly just looking at the holistic well-being of people in the workplace, be it your employers, be it your employees, be it the customers that we service. So from an holistic view and holistic lens in terms of stakeholders, making sure that we're giving people what they need to be productive, but also that we're offering our clients the right products, right services that they need to feel fulfilled and motivated to come back and to buy our products at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay, so
lots of negotiation and convincing.
Oh, okay. It's quite an interesting space or time rather we're in now, post the pandemic, whereby a lot of employees, would say they want to quit their jobs or are quitting their jobs, and they are staying at home more, or they want to work remotely rather. So in your experience, what are the dynamics today between the employer and the employee, or the general, corporate space in general, considering that people feel like they can be more productive at work, and there's that whole debate going on? What is your take on that?
It's been, I feel like that's been my last 2 years of worth of research that I've been busy doing right there. Like I said, setting up the environment to be one where both online and in office, being one where employees are, where it's conducive for employees to come back firstly, where it's safe. So we had the whole debate about safety up front with COVID, with all the different levels we were experiencing. The mask wearing was a big deal, trying to convince people to come back and wear their masks in the office all day. And what we find now is that the notion of where work is done has shifted. So how companies have to accommodate and also be open to receiving these employees has shifted, the types of people that they're employing. This notion has shifted. I've just been reading an article now about polyjobbers, where there are people who have multiple businesses or multiple hustles. So they have side hustles and other initiatives as well as working for an organization. How that is now becoming a trend. So as much as we're looking at, like you said, how do organizations have to react? It's about thinking differently about what work is, who they deem employees and what employees now look like. Also what the workspace and place of the future would look like to accommodate the notion of, like I said, polyjobbers, gig workers, people who have startups, and how we bring them into the business in terms of being a fully fledged corporate, but how you introduce the notion of startups coming into the business to be those consultants or service providers that you now, give an opportunity to. And also smaller businesses, how we not only leverage the big hitters or the big, what do they call them? The big guns, the big four, but how we now look at consulting differently and reaching out and giving opportunities to smaller businesses, and create that balance between both large enterprise and small and medium enterprise businesses as well. So I think the whole notion of what work is, where work is done, and where work will be done is what has companies thinking differently, but also people thinking differently about being productive at home and being productive at work. And when they come into work, using the space in a way that's collaborative. What I've heard is that, and I'm going in tomorrow, so I'm very excited because I just started a new role, so I get to meet the new team. Lots of people have told me that for the first time, I should not expect to get any work done, because all I'll be doing is drinking coffee and having conversations to meet people, because people have missed that interaction. So what's currently happening from a social perspective is that people have missed that sense of belonging, that sense of just peopling and having a conversation with someone in person. So I think if you look at work holistically, it's bringing back the social aspect of, having people together to connect, giving them that sense of belonging, but also finding out how do we now create that productivity when they are in office, because it's no longer full days. So we're seeing most companies have moved to a 2-day work week where you're physically in office and the rest of the time you're working remotely, where others have decided fully remote. There are a few that have decided come back full time, but I think lesser in terms of the percentage. It's less people coming back full time. It's more the hybrid model, which is the 2 or 3 days in office and 2 days at home, or 3 days at home respectively. And I think what companies are toying with at the moment is what is the best fit for them to ensure that the employees are productive, are happy, are engaged, and are motivated to still deliver what they need to deliver.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. You have been recognized by the South African Diversity and Inclusivity Awards. What does that mean for you exactly?
So it was one of my, and it is still one of my it's very close to my heart, passion projects that I was fortunate enough to execute at the organization that I'm at Old Mutual. And I won the award for setting up an LGBTQIA plus pride group as part of the Diversity Awards. And it was one of the communities that we find approached us actually in the organization to say, hey, how are we thinking about and how are we evolving with the times and thinking about gender differently? Especially because the talks are happening even at a school level. Kids of our staff and employees are now identifying as other, or identifying as, no longer he or she, but there's different pronouns that are now being adapted and spoken about. And as an organization, what we decided was, if we truly want to create an inclusive environment, how are we taking into account the needs of everyone? And whether everyone means he, she, other, they, whatever the case may be, how do we truly recognize that and celebrate it and celebrate people for who they are? Because if I'm able to bring my full self to work, what stops the next person from doing the same? So as I mentioned, it was a passion project, which then turned into not even thinking about awards. It was more just setting up an inclusive space. And I'm very big on creating spaces where people can thrive. Like I said, bring their full selves to work and realize their full potential. And this was one of the projects where I got to do that. And was fortunate to be recognized by the South African Inclusivity and Diversity Awards for the new affinity group, for the work that we've done. And what we did in the year was set up the group. We managed to arrange some face-to-face get-togethers for the community, a couple of webinars in the workplace where people who are either part of the community or allies of the community and just wanted to be educated around topics that affect the community. We set up those sessions and people could just join in and share with their families, because that's the beauty of being virtual. Your whole family can now join in. And what we found was that the feedback we received was how it made me as an individual understand myself better. It helped me with my understanding, but also for my family and for my children, seeing that I'm open to having these conversations have shifted the relationships that parents now have with their kids as well. So holistically, other things we've done this year was we were aiming to light up our buildings, which we're hoping to do next year, but we did manage to get a big pride black flags up in our buildings and in our offices to show that we're in support of the community. We also then, like I said, continued with our talks. We were part of the Pride March this year in Cape Town. We had a presence at Joburg and Pretoria Pride we're still working on. So there's a couple of more, initiatives that we have running in that space that's just about one aspect of the diversity work that I was involved in. The others are setting up other employee resource groups where for example, like parents, where they feel they can belong and come and have discussions around parenting. Retirees, so retirees can come and talk about their retirement. We also have a women's network. So it's not necessarily the ones we are also on the board, but these are other employee resource groups that I've also been a part of setting up. And currently we're driving a millennials at Old Mutual group as well, that is also looking at how do we get the voices of the millennials into, the processes and the practices and the voices of the new or the young at heart, as we mentioned, we say both the young and the young at heart, to talk to one another and to build a sustainable business that can last throughout the test of time, as opposed to just focusing on the now. So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing work, and congratulations to you on that.
Thank you.
Would you say that the corporate space is really like opening up to the LGBTQIA plus community? Or, because I saw on social media there was like a debate that, okay, cool, only during Pride Month do we see companies being active, but after that, then it's gone. What is your take on that?
The debate that has been lingering now. So it's something we as a Pride committee and team have also been pushing, and hence driving initiatives throughout the year. So in Pride Month specifically, we'll obviously ramp up our activities, but throughout the year, we have these webinars to keep that top of mind, to keep it a focus in terms of the inclusive spaces that we're driving. And I do think some organizations are still struggling with it, but what I have seen is a shift to have inclusive policies where simple things, and I say simple because we take it for granted, we're just changing a policy to be more gender fluid, are things that people are looking at. Parenting practices and policies, for example, where people are looking at from a parental leave perspective, who does that pertain to? So those things are also starting to be looked at. So what in our organization, for example, what we started doing is looking at those policies that we currently have and addressing it in a way to say, are policies now speaking to what we're driving from for example, the LGBT, is it speaking to that? Or are we just focusing on it just in this employee resource group and having these talks? And what we've done is we've actually looked at the benefits, we've looked at leave policies, we've looked at pay to say, what are the gaps for the community specifically, and how are we addressing those gaps? So I think more and more the notion is growing, not only in our organization, but in a few others as well that I've engaged with, where it's initially, or I think at the beginning, the first thing was let's focus on it in Pride Month. So we even launched our Pride group in Pride Month, and we've built momentum from there. So with being a year in running now, we can already see the strides that we've made in keeping the conversation going. But it does take a committed few of individuals from a committee perspective to keep it top of mind, to have those talks at the Exco sessions that they attend, and all their different businesses. So they're all from different businesses across the organization. And what they've also started doing is making sure it's an agenda item so that it doesn't lose momentum, but that they come and share what Pride firstly does at Old Mutual, and what initiatives are coming up and how you can become a member or support it, or what policies we're looking at. So I think there is definitely a shift. It's not where we need it to be, but there definitely is a shift in the right direction in becoming more inclusive and adding this as an ongoing conversation rather than a once-off.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much for that. Obviously you believe so much in education to a point that you are as I understand, currently completing your studies in parenting. That's so interesting. Like, well, tell me about that.
So I am in my, it's a year and a bit now, almost 2 years in completing my PhD in parenting. And it wasn't my first choice in terms of my topic. My supervisor always teases me about it because of how passionate I am about it now. So I'm not a parent myself in the normal sense of, I've had my own kids, but I do believe I'm a parent to many in terms of who I share my insights with and how I coach and mentor, etc. And also look after my nieces and nephews because they give me lots of gray hairs. It's all under this, I promise. They give me lots of gray hairs.
Yeah.
But where it stemmed from was the notion of understanding, like I said, human behavior. So I've got a big passion for people development and human behavior, understanding why people do the things they do. And more so from a parenting perspective, as a parent, there's no rule book. So each child needs to be parented differently. Each style that you need to use, depending on what the child needs, may need to be different as well. And that's where my love for the topic then came, because I work with lots of kids, do career guidance and coaching, and with their parents. And actually, what was interesting for me was understanding the view of the child in terms of where they see their career going, and the view of the parent as to how sometimes misaligned they are, or how fully aligned they are to where their child is actually, what the interests are, where it's going, where the careers are going, etc. And that's where it stemmed from. And I, to date, have now presented abroad. So I just came back from being away for a month. I presented in Germany, I presented in Brussels, in Belgium, and I also was in Amsterdam presenting my research, just on understanding parenting styles and how we empower parents to have the right conversations with their children for the future world of work, and to set both parents and children up for sustainable futures, but also to have the right conversations and make the right decisions because they know more. So because they know more, they can do more and they can do better. So empowering parents in a sense of also giving them access where they may not necessarily have had the access, to be on the same level as their children in terms of having the conversation. So when your child comes to you and says, I want to be an influencer, you now go, you can turn that into a career, versus crushing and saying, no, you need to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or a teacher or policeman, which is the careers that in the area that I'm working in, which is a previously disadvantaged area in Cape Town, in Paul, parents' notion of, or what they were exposed to, was very limited compared to what children now have access to. And it's about how do we breach that conversation? So my studies focus on exactly that. How do we draft a program that empowers and enables parents to give them the space to learn and grow more about themselves in this new phase as parents, but also then help them engage and empower and enable their children to be better adults and to be better people at the end of the day.
Okay, wow. Today's generation is likely to have you, I guess, because
Thank you.
My generation also, it's like you had to do certain careers, but obviously we understand why. So, glad that you are doing the important work that you are doing so that, the kids can do what they want to do and make the world a better place. You do a lot of work. Tell me about Khanyisa Works. What is Khanyisa Works?
Khanyisa Works is one of my side hustles. It's my NPO that I get to do public speaking through, the career guidance and coaching that I mentioned. I get to do that through Khanyisa as well. And the name was actually, the thing that got me. So when I was looking for a name, I was like, what am I going to call this, NPO and this giving back, this legacy that I want to leave? And Khanyisa actually means light. And my slogan is making light work. So basically it's making, like, doing your work and not feeling the intensity of it, but also shining your light and being the light for others. And that's the significance of the name for me in terms of why Khanyisa. And what I get to do through it is, like I said, the career coaching, the mentoring, the empowering of, it initially started with young females and now it's young adults and just young people. Career guidance talks and motivational talks, but also, like I said, I was able to launch a fashion brand, which I can now empower through talks, tell others about through Khanyisa. So my fashion brand is Wentzel-Ricketts, or it's the Ricketts by Kim, and I get to do work or proceeds from there goes towards Khanyisa as well, to be able to do more outreach work in the communities with my husband.
Wow, you're so busy. You've got your job, you've got Kanisa works, you're studying, you're also going around the world presenting your work, fashion label. And I also understand that you manage your husband as well, who's an artist.
I do. I do.
How
So I get to wear my clothes. That's the fun part to his events.
how do you balance, such a demanding career?
So lots of prayer. Everybody always asks me, and I say this only, the only thing I can say is lots of prayer. But I also make sure that I start my day by meditating, setting myself goals for each and every day. I believe it's important to set out an intention for each day in terms of what you want to achieve, because just like everybody else, I also only have 24 hours in my day. And set out certain goals that are going to allow me, or work my day in a way that will allow me to reach all the milestones I'd like to hit on a specific day. So every day I wake up and I meditate. I have some quiet time in the morning with my morning prayer. Speak to the man above and just to ask him to give me strength for whatever the day is going to, set out for me. And then choose what I'm able to do in that specific day. And it's allocating, like I said, set time to my 9 to 5, which I do. And then thereafter deciding, okay, today I'll focus on studies a bit and do some research or reading. The next day I'll maybe focus on getting through admin. So I have an admin day where I just do all those invoicing and bookings and everything else. And then I also actually have a date night, which I believe is very important, because as much as I'm all of those things, I'm also a wife. So we do have a date night just to completely refresh, reset. I'm also going to start gymming, because I used to do boxing, but I've since been away. So I need to pick it up again now that I'm back. And that's also just me time to keep my energy levels going and keep my energy up. And the one thing I do every night with my husband is I have a meal. So every night we do a meal together. During the day, it's a bit, whenever we can eat, we eat. But every night we have a meal just to check in on how the day has been, on what needs to be done, and set aside what needs to be done for that evening. I do sleep. Surprisingly, I do manage to fit in sleep somewhere in all of this.
Yeah.
Not as much as I need to, but I do sleep. And just, I think, healthy diet. So I try my best to eat as healthy as I can, but I believe in lots of water just to keep me going.
Yeah.
I'm not really a coffee drinker. I know lots of people would go lots of coffee, but I don't really do coffee. So I'm a tea drinker. So lots of tea just to keep me calm. But yeah, that's how I would balance my day. So it's a little bit of exercise, taking walks on the beach. Absolutely love sitting on the beach. So taking a walk on the beach just after a busy day, just to reset and reflect, and also refresh my mind to be able to do more when I get home. But that's how. And weekends are gigs, so we try our utmost to fit in a day of no gigs, no nothing. We're not always able to. We're not always successful because of the demand. But I also do believe in just spending time with family. So I actually get my energy from just spending family time as well. So take time out to just sit with the family, play with my nieces and nephews as much as they drive me insane. Like this weekend, I was watching Paw Patrol. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Paw Patrol. You need to try it, eh?
Yeah,
It's actually quite
I've seen it.
insightful.
Yeah, I've also watched it with my nieces. It's quite entertaining. Yeah.
It is. You can get lost in Paw Patrol, and you need to learn all the characters because you need to choose which one you're going to be in every episode. So yeah, just spending time with my family gives me energy as well. And I feel like that's my downtime, just to disconnect from everything else and actually just be present as much. And also that's my time of no social media, no digital, nothing. I believe it's very important also to disconnect. And I think that's how I'm able to do it, just by being present with them. And being in the conversation and just playing. So my nephews always teach me the importance of playing, whether I'm watching Paw Patrol or running around with him. It's some kind of just, loosening up the seriousness of everything else, and just realizing that we've got this one life. It's best we make the most of it.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. It's so inspirational. Lastly, last question. You're obviously a very driven person. So, what legacy do you want to leave behind on Earth?
That each and every person just realizes that they have a purpose. They are important. They have been brought here and born to do whatever it is that they're doing right now and more. So my legacy is that each and every person realizes and finds their light, to make their light work, to shine their light, and to make their voice heard.
Wow, that is very powerful. Thank you so much, Kim Lee. Wentzel-Ricketts.
Thank you, Andile.